Hey everybody, it's your boy Captain Hunter coming at you again. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Please do me a favor, hit that rate, subscribe, and share button, and just make sure that we are growing and going on this podcast. If you're listening on the audio only, make sure that you are again hitting that rate, subscribe, and share button. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions, any stories you want me to cover, things along those lines. I am turning towards a more men's focused ideas. I talked a lot about law enforcement and things that law enforcement needs to do. Of course, that's still my bread and butter. That's still what and who I am for the most part. Let me adjust this camera here a little bit. So that's still mostly what I am doing in my background and history and all that. But I also have come to understand that if we're going to fix many of the problems that come within law enforcement, if we're going to bridge the divide between the police and the communities that they're served, well, then listen, we got to address the men's issues. And that's really what I'm focused on. And these stories that I'm about to go over today are going to tell us why. Now, I'm not really into gossip, celebrity gossip, things along those lines. But I do think that these stories are very important for us to talk about. So the first story is obviously the Tory Lanez case. And I always thought it was Lorenz. So maybe I was just thinking of, I don't know who I was thinking of. So anyway, so Tory Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion, the shooting incident that went on there. And, you know, there's really not much to talk about in this particular case. I know that well, let me take that back. There is a few things that I really think are important. Number one is that he was convicted in the court of law. Now, if and forgive me, I'm assuming that many people are very much more familiar with this case than I am. I did not follow the case as far as every single step along the way. You know, back in the year 2000, Megan Thee Stallion and this guy, Tory Lanez, who's a rapper from Canada, were en route or coming from some party, and they got into an argument in which Tory Lanez then tells Megan Thee Stallion to go out and dance. You know, apparently said dance, be dance, and then starts shooting at her feet or whatever. As a result of that, I guess when the shrapnels or the bullet itself somehow hit Megan Thee Stallion in the leg, the toe, or something along those lines, police get called, and she tells inconsistent stories, and I believe she was inconsistent along many of the ways there. Regardless, fast forward to today, where Tory was arrested and subsequently tried in the court of law and convicted. They produced whatever, they being the prosecutors, produced whatever evidence they could, and from there, you know, he's sentenced to 3 felony counts, looking at 20 plus years in prison. What I want to say about this is concerning men. Is that his behavior was less than masculine. Let me just put it like that. His behavior was less than masculine. Getting into an argument with a person and then resorting to violence, resulting to pulling out your gun to threaten someone, shooting at them, whether it's to make them dance and be at your will, is all deserving behavior of criminal of any criminal consequences that you get. How can anyone stand behind that? Listen, we've got to learn and we've got to work on our ability to remain calm, to remain in control of ourselves, to remain in control of the situation, to take control of the situation, and to move in a way that demands and commands respect. And that is not what happened in this particular case. It's not what happened. You know, sometimes the power and the issues with guns is that they cause individuals to think more highly of themselves, think themselves more brazen, think of themselves more powerful, and they tend to act along those lines. So this is the problem with these types of things, right? So that's the first lesson that I want everyone to get, is that you know, you've got to be able to maintain your composure. And then, of course, another problem with this is both of these individuals are putting what happened in rap lyrics. Now, I know there's just been this big dispute as to whether prosecutors should or could use rap lyrics in trials and evidence of guilt and things along those lines. I'm totally for it. I don't see the problem with it. I think that prosecutors should be able to use person's rap lyrics in order to prove their guilt and or their innocence. So I don't have any problem with that. We take people's text messages. There was another case I talked about in which a young woman, I believe it was from Washington State, had written a book about murdering her husband, and lo and behold, she had actually murdered her husband, and that was actually put forth. So this is the problem, and so Tory was convicted, and this is just since this is another. There's so much to there is a lot to dissect here. Look at the fame that Megan Thee Stallion has garnered, not only through her type of music, which I find to be problematic in and of itself, but then she's getting fame. She was appeared on the episode of I think it was on Saturday Night Live, and she was on She-Hulk, MCU's She-Hulk on Disney Plus. So this all of this type of behavior, all of this type of ideology, all this type of glorification of violence is rewarded within the black community, and we need to understand that for what it is. Who else is shooting at people? Who else is glorifying the degradation of our communities, of the black community, so-called, I'm putting on air quotes. Who else is glorifying that and getting paid off of it, getting record deals off of it, getting guest appearances on? Listen, this stuff should get people canceled. If it gets you canceled in the NFL, if it gets you canceled in major leagues, if it gets you canceled in other venues, then it should get you canceled here. But no, these people continue to have doors open up for them. I'm sure that even after this case, Meg Thee Stallion would become a poster girl for domestic violence and things along those lines, right? Because it's alleged that she and Tory had been intimate at some point or another. Again, this isn't really very. The story itself is not very interesting to me, but what is interesting is it's the domestic violence piece, our ability to control ourselves and be master of our own domain, of our own minds, of our own bodies. That is something that I think that we as men really need to work on, and black men in particular. You can't go around shooting at people because they hurt you, because they upset you, or whatever. All right, so this is something we really got to master. Tory Lanez found guilty of shooting Meg Thee Stallion. Just more stories from this, and much of the same information that's going on here, right? The case. Let me just read this part. The case, which played out as both a tawdry tabloid narrative and a weighty referendum on the treatment of black women in hip hop and beyond, was closely watched by its famous characters and what is said about the recent adjudication of alleged abuse by notable men such as Johnny Depp and Harvey Weinstein in court and public. So Harvey Weinstein was recently just convicted again of rape. And there is this thing about the treatment of black women in hip hop, this misogynistic behavior of black women, towards black women, and I think it's all very, very problematic when we look at these types of things. And so, what they talked about a lot was this idea of domestic partner violence, intimate partner violence, domestic abuse, and things along those lines. So I went to the CDC. And I hope that this is large enough so you all can read it. I'll try to make it a little bit larger here so you can read it here. Right, so this is from the CDC. Almost 1 in 2 women and more than 2 in 5 men reported experiencing contact sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking, victimization by intimate partner at some point in their life. So this problem of intimate partner violence, whether it's sexual violence, physical violence, or stalking, is a problem that goes both ways. 2 and 5 is 40%, I believe. Yeah, 2 is 40%, and 1 and 2 is 50%. So these numbers are very, very similar. So what's going on here, right? When we look at physical violence, again from the CDC, women, slightly more than 2 in 5 women, 42%, or 52 million in the United States reported experiencing any physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Almost 39% of women, 48.5 million, reported being slapped, pushed, or shoved, and 32.5%, or 40 million, reported severe physical injuries. Right, all these different tables and things along we can go, and that includes having been kicked and slammed against something, hurt by choking, suffocating, beaten, burned on purpose, having your hair pulled, or had a knife or gun used on them. Right. Crazy. These are crazy numbers that women are dealing with. But let's look what the men are dealing with. More than 2 in 5 United States all before their age of being 25. They've been slapped and pushed and shoved by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 39% of men, 46 million. Not very. These numbers are very, very similar to what women are going through. And 24.6, 29 million reported experiencing any severe physical violence, including 16.9 or almost 17% of adult men reporting being hit or fist by something hard. Hit with a fist or something hard. 12% being kicked, 7% were slammed against something, 6.8 hurt by hair pulling, beatings, and things along those lines. So these numbers, you know, and I still want to dig into these numbers a little bit more, right? So how much of this is heterosexual violence? How much of this is homosexual violence? How much of this is woman initiated? How much of this is men initiated? Right. So there's a lot more digging around that I want to do. But this idea this idea that women are suffering at the hands of men in an obscene manner. I was listening to a podcast one time, and they were saying that the black men are just a complete problem for black women. We're just so dangerous to black women. I wish I could find the clip. I really should have saved the clip because it was such an outrageous statement to make that black men are just walking nemesis. No, it's the type of men that you're choosing, right? Again, this is the type of men that you're choosing to be around. Megan Thee Stallion, when I speak up for black women, I'm not afraid of criticism, and protect black women should not be controversial. Listen, I don't have any problems. You know, this is an opinion piece, speaking up for black women, but there's also a case in here. Megan is chiming in after a lot of self-reflection on incident. I realize that violence against women is not always connected to being in a relationship. Instead, it happens because too many men treat all women as objects, which help them justify inflicting abuse against us when we choose to exercise our own free will. From the moment we begin to navigate the intricacies of adolescence, we feel the weight of this threat and the weight of contradictory expectations and misguided perceptions. Many of us begin to put too much value on how we see others. That's if we're seen at all. The issue is even more intense for black women who struggle against stereotypes and are seen as angry or threatening when we try to stand up for ourselves and our sisters. That's not much room for passionate advocacy if you're a black woman. I, being Megan Thee Stallion, recently used the stage of Saturday Night Live to harshly rebuke Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron for his appalling conduct in denying Breonna Taylor and her family justice. I anticipated some backlash. I'm just not quite sure any of this is true, and this is from an opinion piece in the New York Times titled Megan Thee Stallion, When I Speak Up for Black Women. And that was from quite some time ago, October 30th, 2020. So this is problematic, but I want to dig into these numbers and try to figure out what exactly is going on here as far as all these particular numbers. You know, intimate partner violence, particularly in relations to black men in their ideologies. And listen, I'm not trying to say black women aren't suffering from domestic violence, because they are, and I'm not trying to say that these things should be taken lightly, because they should not be. Again, I think that men have to master themselves. I think that there may be some ideas that can be rightly attributed to Megan Thee Stallion's statements concerning men's issues and the ability to want to control them. There may be some truth to that. However, the idea that men are just inherently, and black men in particular, are just inherently dangerous to black women, I just take complete problem with. So let me delve into the next story here, and that's of continuing with the idea of becoming the best men that you can be. Men, step up and be a part of your kids' lives. Men, step up and be a part of your kid's life. That ought to be a mantra. That ought to be a mainstay. That ought to be a staple. It ought to be a rite of passage. You don't call yourself a man unless you're actually in your kid's life, not only as they are infants and toddlers and young adults and preteens and adolescents, but even in their lives as adults, right? So we see this crazy beef that's going on between Romeo Miller, or Lil Romeo, and Master P, and the family feud that they got going on. First thing I want to say is people have to learn to keep mastering yourself. I don't know if you guys can see it here, but I have this Thor's Hammer Mjolnir. This is from game God of War, and the recent game God of War Ragnarok was about fathers and sons coming together, talking, having conversations, moving up, growing up, becoming a man, internal reflections, all this type of deep stuff that's going on in the video game world right now. We have to learn to keep our mouths shut. You can't go around putting everything out into the ether, into the atmosphere. This is the problem, right? You know, people that torylanez is tweeting, or I don't even know if he's tweeting. He was putting stuff out in music. We have these individuals tweeting, putting stuff on social media. I had a conversation with my son and said, listen, you should not be putting all of your business out on social media. And this is the world, this is the way that these millennials and Gen Y and Gen Z, or whatever they're called, this is the world where they're putting everything out there. And if everybody knows what you're doing, then I submit that you're doing something completely wrong. And I think that this is just problematic when they're putting this stuff out in the street. So first thing you have to do, well, first thing is Master P should be the bigger person, in my estimation, be the bigger person and stop commenting. Treat your kids right, do right by your sons and all that. Whatever beef they have going on over their financial issues, rap snacks, and whatever other business ventures they got going on, they need to hash that out behind closed doors and behind where all prying eyes can't see. I know that this is the way that individuals want to release their frustrations. In lilromeo's case, want to release their frustrations. But I think that this is problematic and a mistake. In all honesty, we've got to learn a better way. We've got to learn to master ourselves. That's why I went back to the God of War thing. There's a scene in God of War where the protagonist Kratos says to this is a spoiler for you, says to the other God of War, Tyr, says, master yourself. Are you not a leader of men? Right? Get yourself together. Master yourself. Control yourself. Torylanez. Anyone else who's out there about to snap off on someone, master yourself. Shake yourself. Come out of this funk. Come out of this fog. Master yourself and become the master of your circumstances and your surroundings. Do not allow your circumstances and your surroundings to control you. Stop putting everything out there in the open for people to see. Stop it. You know, it's just a bad look. We do more harm than good. It just continues to rile up, and now everyone's pouncing on this type of thing. So I feel bad that they're going through this, and I hope that they that the Millers can get their issues together, and I hope that they can come to work things through, work things out, and all that type of thing. And it's just sad to see. I hope that these things don't put a stain on the future. I hope that these are learning experiences, not only for them, for the Millers, for themselves, but for everyone else. Work things out behind the privacy of closed doors. Work with your son, talk to your son, love your son, be there for your son, and all that type of thing, right? I think that that's really, and I don't know who this particular fan is. I don't even know if I'm going to blur this out, but he put it out here on hotnewhiphop.com. It says, hate to see it, but whatever brings peace for Romeo. They just need to hash it on a private, just the two of them. I agree with that particular sentiment. The second sentence, I don't agree with the first one. Whatever brings you peace. You can't do whatever's going to bring you peace. But certainly I think that they should try to hash it out behind closed doors, right? So let's see what other stories I got for you. So we want to continue with this idea of what's going on. I want to finish off with this idea of these problems, right? And these stories are all kind of linked, right? When our relationships aren't right, whether it's with our intimate partners, when our relationships aren't right with our parents or with our sons or with our jobs or whatever, it can bring into an idea of mental health and where we're at, and it brings about depression, anxiety, and other maladies that need to be addressed. And so here's a couple of stories from Fortune.com. Fortune.com. Black men get real about mental health. There's so much pressure. And of course, this is in response to Twitch. The young man Twitch. So this is in relation to Twitch. The note that Stephen Twitch left investigators to rule death as suicide. So listen. black men in mental health, we're talking about it, we're getting into it, we're dealing with it, and we've got to continue to do it. At 2000, this is from Fortune.com, a 2021 study in the Journal of American Medical Association noted that suicide attempts among black men were up nearly 80% compared with other races and ethnicities. A statistic that is both disappointing and unsurprising. In response to the news about Twitch, Lamarck decided to host a conversation for the community at his coffee shop in Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood. One of our values is offering help in real time and trying to meet people where they are, he says. And we had a packed house. It was a beautiful feeling. People were talking about their own stuff and what it's all about, trying to honor Twitch with a conversation and giving people the room to let out their confusion, frustration, and their own fears. Right, so that goes on to talk about being a strong black man, right, muscling through this idea of John Henrying your way through problems, right, removing the stigma around mental health and all that. So these are issues that men need to have, and conversations that men need to have, and issues that we need to work through. Well, what's causing much of this pain, anxiety, frustration. The idea that we're suffering in silence, the idea that we have to muscle through certain circumstances. And so this is things that we really need to cover. And so I wanted to, and here's another thing. This came from Fortune magazine as well. Fairly new, December 7th. Men are dropping out of the labor force because they're upset about social status, according to a new study, right? So when you read through this, right, many men are dropping out because they can't compete because they have not gotten a college education. Here it says non-college educated men have seen their pay shrink by more than 30% since 1980 compared to the average earning of all other prime age workers. Their weekly earnings have declined 17%, while those of college educated men rose by 20%, adjusting for inflation. That earnings loss has caused a decline in their social work status, prompting them to walk away from work entirely. The author of the study wrote, Pingun Yu. For many workers, a job not only offers financial security, it also affirms their status, which is tied to their position relative to their age, peers, and many social outcomes, Wu wrote. When social status is one of the things that is extremely important to men. And if we feel as if we are not needed, not wanted, we're easily replaced, if we feel, then this causes the depression. Now, I don't know where Twitch was, and we don't know where, who I'm going to call the Green and the White Ranger, right? Jason David Frank, the Power Rangers star. We don't know. Obviously, he had his problems, he had his issues. I have not seen the man in any acting role since then. I don't know if he was getting residuals from the Power Rangers show. I don't know what was going on with any of that. However, I do know that if he did not feel as if his life had meaning and purpose, then that could have caused some of the issues that he had. He seemed to have a loving, beautiful wife. Don't know what was going on behind the scenes. But this is all mental health, and these are all the types of things that are causing men to try to take their lives. And so I want to end off on this Fortune magazine. So I want to leave it off right there with encouraging men to get the help that they need, encouraging men to continue to grow on, to seek the mental health. Seek the mental health. It's easy. It may seem like we can just talk ourselves through a lot of this stuff, right? Just talk to yourself, put yourself up, deal with past traumas and all that. But it takes work and therapy. After we saw that the Twitch death, we saw the therapist in Chicago who who went to a coffee shop and had a packed house, right? So this is a major issue, and it's a lot larger issue than we understand. And the same article went on to address that there's a need for more therapists, particularly more male therapists of color. And that's actually something that I'm thinking about doing. I'm actually thinking about going back to school to get another master's in that field, so I can help some young men. Because I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to be there. I know what it's like to have to go through this. And I want to help men to become the best versions of themselves. And a lot of that is getting over the pain from the past. A lot of that is getting over, what happened to us in our childhood. It's over. We have to work through the relationships that we had with our fathers, the relationships that we didn't have with our fathers, the relationship we have with our mothers, the relationships that we didn't have with our mothers, the relationships that let us down and hurt us, who singed us, and just all types of things. So these are things we have to work on. So I really hope that I said something today that helps you to be encouraged, to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, much love and peace. Much love and much peace.